I'm going to start with. Guys, this is for your consent that I have started recording of this session. Okay, so let's begin. So guys, I have a question for you. Let us say there is a domain. For example, www.servergyan.com. Let me make it a little large. Yes, this is the domain, guys, servergyan.com, right? Guys, are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so let us say if I type in this domain into my browser, so obviously a particular website comes up, or maybe if not servergyan, let us type in flipkart.com here. If I type in this domain into browser, so obviously one website will come up before me, right? So since I typed in flipkart.com into my browser and I'm able to see this browser, so what all thing happens in background? Is there anyone who can help me with that? Guys, did you get my question? Since I type in a domain name into browser and I am able to see the website, so what all things takes place in background?
First, it will be open proxy website, and then it will forward to flipkart.com.
Okay, and why would it open proxy website?
Because we don't wanted to allow another DDoS talking like that.
So Lokendra sir, I have some input from my side. Means I can answer this question. It will go to public IP first.
Okay, and
Then,
how, when I am typing in a domain name, but I do not have an IP address, so how will you reach out to an IP address? Because I know the domain name.
It
We
will
are
convert.
using DNS Jones.
By using a Route 53.
Okay, by using Route 53, great. And how would you know that it is hosted on Route 53? It could be possible it is hosted on maybe GoDaddy name server. It could be possible on Google DNS, maybe on some other DNS. How will you identify that? That is a trick here. That is the trick here. It means that
In
is
the DNS Jones, we add a record for the IP
okay.
address.
So there are like plenty of DNS servers. How will you be able to identify that which DNS server is responsible for your website or for the website which you are trying to access?
Yogendra, basically, there are root DNS and cache DNS. So,
Okay.
the request that we send, it lot many people would have access. So the cache DNS in our region, it will have the IP address for that, which will resolve that, and
Okay, let me answer this. Ram, please mute yourself if you are not speaking. Fine. So just to answer your question, Emmanuel, like you were saying, that there will be a proxy or there will be caching only DNS server. So caching only DNS server, but which caching only DNS server? Every single organization may have a particular caching only DNS server. So which caching server you are talking about? Emmanuel,
Yeah.
which caching server you mean to say? You mean to like describe that?
Yeah, that's what I said. Every region will have cache DNS server, which will have this information, stored locally. So when we look up for this name, it will resolve it from the regional cache DNS server, whichever is the nearest.
Okay.
And that IP address is resolved for that particular host name, and that is how we connect to flipkart.com.
Not exactly.
Okay.
Okay, let me explain. Manish sir, you would you like to comment anything here?
Nothing, sir.
Okay, great. Not a problem. So guys, what happens here, whenever we are talking about a domain that we would like to browse this domain, so we have a laptop here, or maybe a desktop you can think of. So this is end user machine, which we have. Let us take this one, looking nice. Okay. So guys, we need to understand this particular thing, that whenever a user is typing in a domain name into browser, right? So every single laptop has a like LAN card, which is known as NIC, which is known as network interface card, right? And this NIC has a couple of information configured here. First of all, like IP, could be IPv4 or IPv6. That's what we are going to discuss later on. But right now, let us take example of IPv4. Or when we are talking about IP, so we will write here IP address, right? Second thing, this IP address will belong to any class, and that class has to be defined with the help of some subnet mask, right? I guess every single person who is attending this, so like a person must be aware of these two terminology, like IP address and subnet mask, right? Then after, there will be a particular third configuration item that will be known as gateway, right? And fourth and final item here is going to be DNS. So guys, this is the particular component which we would like to discuss first of all in order to browse a website. Okay. Now, which DNS is this? So guys, there are different type of DNS. And what are the types of DNS? Let us think of it. First of all, we have caching only. Then after, we have primary. And we have secondary. So guys, based on these three like configuration item, caching only, primary or secondary, we can enter maximum 3 entries within our DNS configuration file. Up to 3 DNS we can add here, right? The particular way these DNS are going to help us resolve the domain name against, or you can call that resolve an IP address against your domain name. That part we will discuss later on, but right now we need to understand this thing that we can. Yeah. Deepak, want to say something? If not, please mute yourself. Okay, great. So these 3 entries we can make within our configuration file. In case of Windows, so definitely we know very well, we have a particular graphical user interface where we can enter. In case of Linux, there is a file in Linux operating system, and the file is known as /etc/resolve.conf. This is a particular file where we can enter like maximum 3 domain name server entry we can make here, right? Now, which DNS server we would like to enter? First of all, the particular caching only DNS server entry we would put on the top. If that is not accessible, and let us say we did not make entry for primary or for secondary server, then what would happen? Then this caching only server is going to take us to some ISP DNS. Let me define that here. This caching only DNS server, if it does not have the information of servergan.com or maybe of flipkart.com, then it will forward us to some ISP DNS. Definitely the particular person who configures this caching only DNS server, that is responsible to store information within this caching only DNS server, that if you do not have any information, then what is going to be your source of information? Then caching only DNS server will reach out to ISP DNS. ISP stands for Internet Service Provider. It could be your Vodafone, your Airtel, Jio, or maybe any other vendor, right? So whatsoever domain name service provider you are using in order to access internet, the particular provider who has enabled you with internet, that provider will be responsible to provide you DNS services as well. Okay. Now let us say the domain name server.com I have just uploaded onto a DNS, and this particular website has yet not been browsed so far. This is very first time when we are going to browse this particular website. Now guys, what is going to happen? So post this particular DNS, if my DNS does not have information about this, or the ISP DNS does not have information about this, then this information will be searched over internet. Then this ISP may look for some near ISP, NISP, nearby ISP DNS. Let us assume that even nearby ISP does not have information about servergan.com. Then this may look for the information onto Google DNS. Right? Let us assume, because as I told, that this is very first time that I have hosted this domain. So Google DNS will also not have information about this DNS, right? Then this Google DNS will reach out to root DNS. Now, what is this root DNS? So guys, as you can see, there is a particular domain name written here, www.servergan.com. Over here, it is written like diagrams.net. Over, like, even you know very well, like there are approx 13 to 14 root DNS server like .com, .org, .gov, .edu. That sort of like 13 root level domains used to be there, but right now, like based on the internet demand, multiple other domains, other root domains are coming. So that's why like number may vary now. So root DNS, like .com root DNS server will be used in order to identify the particular DNS. So let us say root DNS will not have entry for this website, but what it is going to have, it will have information about domain registrar. Whenever we purchase a domain, there has to be a domain registrar, like who is going to, like who has sold this domain to a user, right? So we will be able to identify that who is our domain registrar, right? Like I have written in short because like this line is going to be really long. So domain registrar. Now domain registrar will be responsible. Root DNS server has informed about domain registrar. So domain registrar will be responsible to provide you the information about DNS. Domain registrar, let us say it is GoDaddy, it is Amazon, it is Google, it is Namecheap, it is name.com. So whatsoever, like domain registrar you have selected in order to purchase domain, that domain registrar is going to be responsible to let you know where is this domain hosted currently. Now domain registrar will let you know about the SOA, startup authority, like where is this domain hosted right now. Okay guys, so based on that particular configuration, or based on this particular like track, like caching only DNS server, then after ISP DNS, near ISP DNS, Google DNS, root DNS, and other domain name service providers. So finally, we are going to get our original DNS server, like originating DNS server where it is hosted currently, right? So domain registrar is going to be responsible to let you know about your domain name. Then finally, we will reach out to DNS, and this DNS is going to be responsible that how we are going to resolve a domain name. I hope this makes sense. Am I clear with my, like, I'm clear here? Do you have any questions so far, guys? Guys, any question? Okay, someone wrote in chat that Route 53 we are going to use. So guys, domain registrar will let us know that the domain is hosted on Route 53 or on Google DNS server, or maybe like anywhere else. So are we clear like how we are going to resolve a domain name? Guys, any question?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Hey, Sergeant, question on hosted zone, right? You should have your hosted zone before you have your Route 53. How is that factored in here?
Okay, so let me tell you the particular thing, Eric, which we are asking about hosted zones. So when we create our name server on like our private name server, like we are not like name service provider, we are not domain name service provider, but yes, we would like to have our internal domain name server. So in that case, we will have to create couple of zones here. Like we will have to create forward or reverse lookup zones, right? So those zones are only maintained by the domain service provider. In this particular case, when we are using any public DNS, we are not authorized to maintain any like zone for like DNS zone file. Now, when we are talking about DNS, so what are the different type of records do we have? So as we are talking about, like we will enter a domain name into browser and we are supposed to get an IP address against this. So guys, what are the type of DNS record do we have? So let us define here type of DNS record.
A record, C record.
Okay, first of all, we have a record, and why do we use it? When we want to like get an IP address against domain name. We can define here FQDN, like fully qualified domain name to IPv4. Right? FQDN stands for fully qualified domain name. Then after we will talk about A, like 4 times A. This is going to define FQDN to IPv6. Then we have another domain name, like we have other records, like we have NS. This stands for name server, or you can call that domain name server, which stands for DNS. Like NS means name server, and this is used to resolve any domain. So this is known as domain name server. Right, guys? Then after we have other records like SOA, startup authority. So basically this domain name, this domain record, this name server record is going to be responsible to answer any query which is coming over internet. That is known as SOA, startup authority. Right, guys? Then after we have CNAME. This is known as canonical name. Like if I type in fb.com, then it will forward my request to facebook.com. So it means fb.com is a CNAME for facebook.com, right? So this is just for example, guys. We can keep any other name as well, right? This is just for example. This is not the final thing, guys. We can keep our own CNAME records for using different purpose. But for now, what we are going to do here in our real case scenario, how we are going to use it, guys? Let us say there is a website known as servergyan.com, right? And I do not want to send request directly to servergyan.com. I have hosted this website, let us suppose on AWS. So I would want that my website should be sitting behind a load balancer. So rather than pointing as a record, what I will do, I will create a CNAME record and I would point my ELB, let us say my AWS ELB.amazon.com. So whenever anyone is going to request servergyan.com, right? So this DNS records will be resolved. Like my load balancer, public IP address will be provided to that particular end user, and that user will be able to browse servergyan.com. So this is how CNAME works. So this is, guys, just for example, right? Then after, what other type of records do we have, guys? Is there anyone who can help with this?
MX records for mail services.
Okay, MX record.
TXT record.
TXT record, okay. And why do we use TXT record? For domain verification.
Domain validation.
Verification, validation, you can write any word here, verification, validation, right? So SRV. Then after we have SPF. Then after we have DKIM.
PTR.
We have PTR. And we have CAA. Then after, what else we have, guys? NAPTR.
MX. Achha, MX is already covered.
Yeah, it is
Okay.
it is already covered.
Yeah.
What else, guys? So it means
What's wrong?
No,
I think SPF and DKIM including TXT, right?
so earlier these used to be separate records, but right now TXT can cover like SPF and SRV.
Okay.
Even couple of other records are still remaining, what we are going to discuss when we will talk about DNS only. But for now, if you understand only these records like A record, NS, SOA, CNAME, MX, TXT, then you are good to go with, right? These records are supposed to be known only to experts. But if you are working as a like website administrator, then these are the records which you should be aware of. These are good enough. That's why I did not define a lot about this. Right, guys? Okay. So when we are talking about like whenever we enter a domain name into a browser, then what happens? These are the particular things which we have discussed so far, right? So guys, just after typing in a domain name into browser, we do not get the website on our laptop or desktop screen. A lot of activities takes place, right, guys? So if you see there is a log defined here. If you see there is a log defined, which means this is secure website. So we need to have, like, obviously not today, but definitely going forward, we are going to discuss about protocols like HTTP or HTTPS. What are the differences between these? If it is HTTPS, then what version of like SSL we are using? What version of TLS we are using? It is 1.2, 1.3, right? That sort of things we are going to discuss. We will discuss about like how does HTTPS handshake work? Where do we install certificate? That sort of thing for sure we are going to discuss. But before that, a very 10,000 feet overview of different type of layers. Like guys, sometimes during interview, a person might ask you, okay, can you explain what like three-tier architecture of your infrastructure? Now, what is this three-tier architecture? It means there will be three layers. First of all, there will be front-end layer. There will be middle layer. Then after it is going to be DB layer. Front-end layer, middle layer, and your DB. So let us define that here. What are these three, guys? Okay, let me create a new page for that. Yes, guys, first of all, it is known as FE, front end. This is layer 1. Then after it will be middle layer, or rather than calling it middle layer, let's write it here, middleware. So what is middleware? We will discuss about it. Then after we are going to talk about DB. Right, guys? So when we talk about three-tier architecture, so how do we secure it? So guys, in order to secure these particular components, we have three different type of components. We have segregation of network. We create this network based on network zone. So guys, if you remember here, we talked about like different type of environment like dev environment, QA, UAT, SIT, pre-prod and prod, right? So these are based on the utilization, like how we are going to utilize this infrastructure in order to get our requirement fulfilled. Right, guys? Then after we saw here, if you go back, like we talked about like different type of servers. So this was based on the like presence of the servers, whether it is available in physical manner or it is just a virtual machine or it is container environment. Now, the very third thing here is we are going to talk about a different concept. We are going to talk about segregation of our infrastructure based on network allocation. So guys, there are three type of zones. Now, what is the zone? Based on the security availability, like how much security you have implemented on these servers. So based on that layer, based on that availability of security, we are going to define this into three different layers. First of all, this is known as DMZ, or you can call the DMZ, right? So the word is going to remain same. If you are American, you can call it Z. If you're Britishers, you can call it Z, right? So when we are talking about, this is known as DMZ, demilitarized zone. This is highly secure. This is highly secure environment because all the web servers are kept here. Like public facing server. We can define that here. All the servers which are supposed to get requests from your public or wherever your direct traffic is going to land. So those servers will be kept here. For example, your web servers. For example, the load balancers, which are supposed to accept traffic from internet, those load balancers. For example, your web application firewall, those devices, right? Every single component which is going to accept a direct hit from end user, those servers, those components, those devices are going to be kept here. Right, guys? Second thing is known as prod zone. Now, guys, what is use case of this prod zone? All the middle layer servers. For example, you are working with maybe Java applications, right? Maybe you have some other components which are not accepting traffic directly from internet, but in order to serve your customer better, you guys are using it. For example, you are working with Magento, or you are working with WordPress, or you are working with your let us say, in order to support Magento, WordPress, or maybe any other component. For example, you are using WebLogic, you are using WebSphere, or maybe you are using here JBoss, right? Like Red Hat JBoss you are using here. Moreover, you have implemented your Redis. So Redis will be implemented here, Elasticsearch, right? So all the components which are supporting to your multiple microservices. Maybe you would like to search the component faster, so you can use Elasticsearch here. Maybe you would like to have a caching database, you can use Redis for that, right? So all the components. Why I'm explaining these things, guys, here right away? Because you should be aware of this, that how the infrastructure is created. Fine, guys? So based on the availability of, okay, I'm so sorry, guys. Yeah. So first of all, it is DMZ, then after it is prod zone, and finally we have a DB zone. Guys, what is the difference here? We could have created only one zone like DMZ, and we could have kept all the servers within the same environment. But guys, why we are not keeping it here like that? Guys, is there anyone who can help me, like why we have created 3 different zones?
I have a question here. In this, why application servers cannot accept traffic directly? Why you're going for another server?
Okay. Anyone would like to answer the question?
Security.
Security is a very blanket statement. Any other one? Vikas Tripathi?
High availability, sir.
High availability and keeping server in different zone? No, not relatable.
To prevent the DDoS attack.
So if all the servers are kept in DMZ zone, so will DDoS attack happen or not?
Yes, it will happen, because when it will happen, there is a chance to in the prod zone also it will get affected.
Okay.
Hi, Resilient.
Yeah. Yes, Anshu.
Yes, hi, Resilience.
Not exactly.
Oh.
Any other one? Guys, this is open forum. You can give your answers. A wrong answer is better than no answer.
Yeah, hi. Actually, this is because of the, in DMG mostly we put the public facing servers, right? So there will be so many requests coming into these servers. Okay, so it should not hamper our internal production environment also. So I think that's the reason we put some server in a DMG zone also.
Okay, good. Let me come on to it. So the very well said, like couple of answers are near to be right, but the exact answer here is, see, all the DMG servers. So there are two type of IP addresses, guys. Let me define that here. There are two type of IP addresses, like public IP. So it could be public and it could be private, right, guys? So all the servers which are kept in DMG zone, all the servers which are going to be kept in DMZ zone. So these servers will not only have public IP address, sorry, these servers are not only going to have private IP address, but public IP address as well. The servers which are kept in DMZ zone, these will have two IP address associated with the same server, one public IP address and one private IP address, right? Why it is so? Because sometimes we have to point a website directly to a server. So in that case, if we want to open, if we want our website to be publicly accessible, so in that case, we would need to have one public IP address. And wherever any IP address is exposed over internet, it means there is high risk of, like, that could be anything. Like a lot of threats are there. A particular person may try to do DDoS or DDoS attack, maybe cross-site scripting, maybe email spoofing. Anything can happen on a public IP address, right, guys? So the type of servers we have, so public IP, like public facing IP addresses, we are definitely supposed to have. Without having public IP address, we cannot make our domain public. We cannot make our website internet accessible. This is a compulsion to have. So all the DMZ servers are supposed to have one private IP address and one public IP address attached directly, or maybe like you can call it like one-to-one IP pointing, right? That way. Second thing, when we are talking about prod zone, so guys, why there is a prod zone requirement? So guys, based on the business logic or based on business requirement, sometimes these servers will not be accessible from internet directly, but it might be possible, it might be required that couple of services which we are using, these services are supposed to access data from internet. So with the help of proxy, like we can enable proxy here, right? With the help of proxy, these servers like Java services, Magento, WordPress, WebLogic, so these microservices or these different middle layers, these may reach out to internet based on the demand, based on the requirement. For example, we need to have integration with some of the vendors. Like, for example, you would like to enable any payment aggregator, right? You would like to enable any payment gateway. So in order to reach out to that payment gateway provider, payment service provider, how will you reach out to that particular person? With the help of proxy. So you can enable proxy from like outgoing proxy, you can enable that your application will be allowed to access data from their side, right? So that is why if there is a requirement to enable proxy, so we have a different zone. People from internet would not be allowed to access these servers directly, but these servers would be able to access internet from like within from the machine or from the servers. When we talk about databases, so databases are never supposed to have any sort of proxy implemented. Yes, there could be only one scenario where proxy could be implemented. For example, if these database servers are supposed to download any sort of update from internet or maybe from the like service provider or maybe the product support. So for example, you are running like MySQL, you would like to download some latest packages from internet, you are using Oracle and there is a new patch available, you would like to implement that patch into database. So in that case, for the time being, you can enable proxies here. Otherwise, even it is not recommended to do so. What is actually recommended? There will be a server within DMZ zone. You will download the particular packages at this particular place. Then after on internal traffic, you will forward the particular packets or the particular downloaded software from DMZ zone to DB zone internally. This is the ideal way to patch your DB servers. Right, guys? Are we clear so far? Do we have any question?
Yes, I have a question, John.
Please go ahead.
So in this architecture design, why not put your DMZ, I mean your prod zone, actually your proxy behind your DMZ and then your prod servers behind your proxy, instead of each one of them having their own zones?
Yes, a very beautiful question you asked. That the same thing I was explaining. Once again, I'll let you know. So the servers which are supposed to have production traffic directly from internet, these are kept here because there are two type of IP addresses associated, public and private. Every single server will be accessible from internet directly. The type of machine, the type of servers which are required to access internet, but no one from internet is allowed to access these servers. These are going to be kept inside prod zone. Third type of servers are known as DB, where no internet is allowed.
Yeah, I understand that part, but what I'm saying is, you see, the DMZ is always going to have the public and the private.
Right.
Your production zone and your DB zone is going to be your private service, right? Even if you architect it through, let's say if you're hosting it on AWS, that means you're going to put a Bastion host in front of it so you can get in easily, right? Because it's in your private zone. So what I'm saying is, why not put your DMZ in front with your proxy behind your DMZ, and then you can have your production and DB behind your proxy? That's what I'm asking.
So if you enable proxy, so a particular person can send data from your database servers to outside. Let us say a particular person who has access to your database will be able to put data maybe onto any drive, maybe on Google Drive, maybe somewhere else a person can do, but databases are really highly secure. It is not actually allowed. Just to ensure security, just to ensure high security.
Right. So your database zone will always have your private IP, so it cannot be accessed easily,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So basically,
database servers will not have access to any proxy. Database servers will never have a public IP address. These will not be exposed directly to any other zone rather than prod. Only the particular servers which are going to make a direct connection to databases, from these servers, databases will be allowed to have connection. The servers which are kept here in DMZ will not have direct access to database. There will be a middle layer. DMZ zone servers will send like request to middle like prod zone, and prod zone will get in touch with database directly. Like web servers are not supposed to have a direct connection with databases.
yeah, I agree on that one.
Okay. So guys, are we clear so far?
Look, still it is not clear to me. Just I'm trying to understand it. So the WordPress or this Java based or PHP based, any applications are meant to receive the traffic, public traffic. So still, it's not unclear to me why you are going for application server. What will happen actually if you're putting the application server in a public or the DMZ server?
Okay. So whenever your application, be it is any, let us say it is Java, Magento, WordPress, your Joomla, any sort of services, whatever you are going to talk about, right? So if let us call these application environment, application servers.
Correct.
So when your application servers are supposed to accept traffic from internet, so these will be kept inside your DMZ. Let us say it is PHP application, it is Perl application, it is written in Python. So whatsoever language or your programming language you have used in order to develop your platform. So if these servers are supposed to accept traffic from internet directly, so these will be kept inside DMZ. If these are written only to serve the business logic, for example, once a user has entered into an environment, you would like to do some business calculation. Let us say if it is a logged in user. Okay, let me give an example here. So guys, are we clear like what is application server? Guys, do we understand what is application server?
Yes, I understand that. I understand.
Okay, great.
Application server is the server where we put the business logic.
Right.
Code.
Yes, you are right. So which means, let us say, if we talk of flipkart.com, this website, if we take example of, so if a user is not logged in, so what all actions can a user perform? Okay, some websites do not allow to add any product into your cart until unless you are logged in, right? Flipkart says, let a user come and let a user select the particular products what the person would like to purchase to a cart. Once the user will go to checkout page, at that moment we will like enforce login option in order to do checkout. These are the business logics, and these particular calculation, like whether a user can add like component to cart or not, when we are going to enforce a user to log in. So these are written inside your application servers, and the particular front end which we are seeing here. So these particular front end servers are kept inside your DMZ zone, because from these servers, Flipkart is accepting traffic directly from internet. All the business logics are being done inside prod zone, where proxy is allowed, and DB servers do not have any proxy enabled.
No. So why we are going for a DMG? We can, the application server itself can accept traffic. Why we are going for 3? So only we can keep 2 application server and the database server. So we can direct accept traffic to application. And
yes, you are right. You are right. I am in agreement with that. But let me tell you, if your application servers are directly accepting traffic from internet, then these servers are more vulnerable. The chances to have direct attacks on individual application servers are really higher.
The same thing can happen to the DMG also. If the attack
over here, when we are talking about DMG server, so we have to place a lot of different security components. First of all, we allow only port 443 to be accessible over internet. Then after we implement here Cloudflare, we can implement here sort of your CDN, content delivery network. Behind that, we are going to have here your web application firewall. We are going to have here different checks. But if we talk about application servers, so application servers run on different ports, right? HTTPS works only on 443, but whenever we are talking about application servers, so some servers are running on port number 8000 or maybe like 8080, like 5666. That sort of different application servers are going to run on different ports, wherein whenever we are supposed to accept traffic from end user, like from internet, so at that moment DMZ servers are supposed to accept traffic only on port number 443. Only one port is allowed for end users. And one more thing, someone might have a question, why not port 80? So if we allow port 80, so we do a redirection, then whenever a user is trying to access our website in a non-secure manner, like on port number 80, protocol is HTTP. So we immediately redirect that traffic from HTTP to HTTPS. So for example, let me give you like real-time example here. If I click here and I remove this S, this is HTTP, right guys? If I hit enter here, so this will automatically be redirected to HTTPS. So the particular component which I'm trying to say here is that even if I hit any website on port 80, there can be some redirection put, and based on that, the particular website will be redirected from non-secure to secure port. If you would like to see that happening in real time, let me open this particular thing for you.
Means, sir, this can be done through proxy.
It's not about proxy. It's about the traffic redirection. Let me
path forwarding can do it through load balancer.
Yes, we can do that.
But look at the style. That question is still has doubt to me, because till I understand this application, we can direct when 443 for that application server, we can open for the public traffic, and we have other ports
ideally
also.
Okay, let me come on to that as well, my dear. So we can have all the servers into one zone. So these are for securing your infrastructure based on the network accessibility. Whether you would like to have all the servers into one zone, so it is not restricted. It is not mandatory to have all the servers in different zone, like public, your web servers, application, and DBs. So when an organization is in such a phase where we are going to have very small infrastructure, it is not designed well, the particular the person who has designed this particular infrastructure did not have this thought in mind that we are going to grow up to this much extent. So if an auditor comes into your environment and the auditor is going to ask you question, okay, can you share your network diagram? So at that moment, the person is going to give you some sort of observation that all of your servers, whether these are like public facing, your production servers, which are known as application server, your databases, these all are running a single network segment. Until and unless there are external auditors coming in and they are not like auditing your infrastructure, till the time we are good. We can keep all the servers into same network segment. But as soon as we are talking about like external auditors and third party or like vendors coming in and they are auditing our infrastructure, then definitely we are going to have some observation from their side, like our network diagram or our network architecture is not as per standard. For example, if you are going to go for any ISO certification, like on the top of your infrastructure, right? So in that particular case, guys, definitely this sort of like a network diagram or network architecture is recommended there. Once again, I'll say that we can put all the type of servers like front end, like public facing servers, application servers, and DB servers as well. We can keep all the servers into same zone. Even there is no need to have 3 different zones. We can have all the servers into any zone and let us call it like our production zone. Let's not call it prod zone, DMZ or DB. Let us call it production zone. We can have all the servers into one network segment we can have. But if you are going to have any sort of ISO certification, in that case, you need to segregate, you need to separate, you need to isolate individual type of servers into different network segment. Do I make sense now? So this is the ideal like structure. Otherwise, no one is going to enforce that. Why have you kept different network different zone, or why you have all the servers in one zone? Ideally, no one is going to ask you, but whenever you are going to go for like ISO certifications, this sort of recommendation will be there, and until and unless you achieve this, you will not be certified. You means your organization will not be certified. Because there are a lot of chances. Yeah.
Okay, sir. So after setup of 3-tier architecture of application, so how do we set up a connectivity between them?
Okay, so
firewall connectivity.
Yes. So the particular okay, let us discuss that particular part when we are going to draw the network, the architecture diagram. Right now we are talking about the use cases of this particular like 3-tier architecture, right? So we are just going to jump onto that particular, right? So let us see that here. So guys, when we are talking about, first of all, we have a website, and the name of that website is, let us say, www.servergan.com. This is our main website, right? Now, this is hosted on a DNS. We have internet over here. Let us keep another box stating that we have a DNS over here, and DNS is public. So this is DNS, right guys? DNS is hosted over internet, and from this particular point, our infrastructure begins. From here, our infrastructure begins. Right guys? So first of all, what sort of components we are going to have? That is the main thing here to discuss, and how we are going to manage that. So guys, from internet, there will be requests coming in over internet, and from internet that will be entering into our environment. So what is going to be the very first component here? So guys, first of all, we would like to have a sort of load balancer. Yes, guys. So we are going to have this load balancer enabled, right? This is LB. We can define that here. This load balancer will be accepting traffic on port number 80 and 443, either on port 80 or port number 443. No other ports will be opened here, right? This load balancer will accept traffic from internet on port 80 or port number 443. And we are going to place a rule here. Definitely, I'll show in practical manner as well going forward. So whenever request will come onto this load balancer on port number 80, so this load balancer itself is going to redirect that traffic from port number 80 to port number 443. Load balancer is capable enough to redirect non-secure traffic to secure traffic, right? Non-secure protocol to secure protocol, a particular load balancer can like convert that request, right? Moreover, we need to have HTTPS certificate, or you can call that SSL certificate, right? So SSL connections are going to be terminated here. Secure socket layer, we are going to have here that sort of certificates will be associated with this load balancer. And guys, one more thing, we cannot enable port number 443 until and unless we have a certificate associated with this load balancer, right? So three things should be very, very clear, that we terminate our SSL connection on like this load balancer layer. Second thing, we allow only two ports, port 80 and port number 443 on this load balancer. No other ports are recommended. Like obviously based on our requirement, we can allow n number of ports. We can open n number of ports here, but in an standard and ideological environment, port number 18, 443 are the only ports which are supposed to be opened on this particular load balancer. Based on business requirement, we can allow any port, but recommendation is port number 80 and 443. Okay. Now, first of all, we have this load balancer, and behind this load balancer, we are going to have the very first layer of servers, which are going to be web servers. Now, let us say we are using Tomcat here. Tomcat is running on port number 8080. So guys, how we are going to forward traffic? This load balancer will have a particular connection enabled, that these web servers will accept traffic not from internet directly, but how we are going to whitelist this particular server to accept traffic from this load balancer? There will be a security group associated in case of AWS, and same thing happen with any cloud environment, or we can do the same within our like on-prem infrastructure as well. So these web servers will be allowed to accept traffic from this load balancer only, right? Port number 8080 will be accessible from this load balancer itself. So let us say we have 10 servers, we have 20 servers here. So all the 20 servers are going to allow to accept traffic from this load balancer. This load balancer will be accepting traffic from internet directly, because this is supposed to be kept in DMZ zone. These web servers can be put inside your prod zone or inside your like DMZ zone. That will be depending on you, because right now we are not going to enable, you can call that like we are not going to enable public IP address on these web servers. Why it is so? Because this load balancer will have two IP addresses, two public and two private IP address, and based on those private IP addresses, this load balancer will be forwarded to a request to your internal servers. Are we clear with this, guys? This load balancer will accept traffic from internet and will forward traffic to your web servers. So right now we are not exposing our web servers directly to internet, but we have exposed our load balancer to public. So in case if we want to implement WAF, or if we want to enable any other type of like DDoS prevention mechanism we want to enable, so we would like to associate that mechanism with load balancer itself. Are we clear with this?
So between your load balancer and your web application or web server, what is the security mechanism there?
Okay.
Because you have I know you trafficking of port 443 onto your web server. So but what is the security between your load balancer and your web server here?
Okay. So the particular servers are also serving the traffic on HTTPS. Port number 8080 is enabled for HTTPS protocol only. So the particular server will receive traffic here and will forward traffic onto HTTPS protocol onto this server. So everywhere, wherever we are transferring the traffic, so that is going to travel over TLS only, like transport layer security. So we are going to enable, first of all, we are using TCP protocol suite. Then after we are transferring traffic on HTTPS only. We are not using HTTP anywhere. So the particular end user traffic will be terminated here based on SSL. Over from here, like now this is the particular requester to this. From here, when the request will be forwarded from load balancer to web server, that will be forwarded on HTTPS. One SSL certificate will be implemented here as well. So that particular connection will be implemented in such a way that request will be initiated from load balancer, and that connection will be traveling between load balancer and web servers. So this is how we are going to secure it. Right, guys? Then after, when we are talking about like we have multiple application servers, we are not talking about web servers. Let's talk about app servers. Right now we have app server. Once again, what we are going to do, let us say we have 10 application server and we have 10 web and 20 application server. So we will need to have one load balancer enabled here as well. Now, whenever we create load balancer, there are two schemes. Either it could be internet facing or it could be internal load balancer. Right, guys? So this time we are not going to have this load balancer as internet facing. We are going to have this load balancer as internal load balancer. All the web servers will forward traffic to this, and this will further distribute load or traffic among these application servers which are created here. Now let us say we are not using here Tomcat, we are using, let us say, WebLogic. Right? So this is just for example, guys. I do not mean to say, okay, let us not write it WebLogic. We can define here microservice. Right, guys? So guys, right now we are just talking about like 20,000 feet overview. We will deep dive into it, like how these web servers are created, how these are secure, right? Who all can access these web servers, where from these servers are going to be accessible, what are the particular port number we are going to enable on this load balancer, how we are going to ensure that these application servers or this like microservices will be up and running all the time, how we are going to ensure the deployment, where the deployment servers will be kept, where the automation servers will be kept. So that sort of thing we will discuss going forward. But right now we are talking about like very high overview of a 3-tier architecture. Because those guys who are quite new to this, those who have yet not seen the end-to-end application flow, so I would I'm just trying to explain, I'm just trying to bring this information for them that they should be aware of like how the entire flow works from the point in time when we are entering a domain name into a browser. So how a user is able to walk through all the interfaces, how the ecosystem is working in order to serve the request of a user, that sort of thing I'm trying to put in place, right? Then after application servers, we have, finally, we have a database layer. Right, we have these databases. Right, guys, so any questions so far?
So, this is web server. Tomcat 8080 port is the web DMD server, right? Hello.
Yes, please.
Sir, web server Tomcat 8080 port is the web DMD server.
So it is web server basically. see, do not get confused with web server. Like it could be Tomcat, it could be your Apache, it could be Nginx, it could be your IIS in case of Windows.
Okay, this is in which zone? Like
So, see,
FDMG or FDM?
so
Sorry,
ideally web
web
servers
DMG.
are supposed to be in your DMZ zone only. But it is not mandatory to allow like public IP address with your web servers. And why is that so? Because we have already exposed a load balancer which has public IP address in order to accept traffic from internet.
So I guess the question here is, where on this architecture, where do you have your DMZ, where do you have your prod zone, and where do you have, I mean, your database zone might be on the back. I get it. That's where we're trying to find out here from this architecture.
Okay, so let me define that here. So if you're talking about zone, so your load balancers and your web servers are supposed to be in your DMZ zone. When you are talking about application servers, these are in prod zone, and your DB are going to be in DB zone. Your database servers will accept traffic from these application servers only. So everywhere, for example, if I talk here that there is a different, like there is a particular, what do I call? There is a particular network range here, like 10.0.1.0/24, for example. All the web servers are running here within this particular range. If you talk about 10.0.2.0/24, your application servers are running within this particular range, right? And your DBs are running 10.0.3.0/24. Your database servers are running here. So at firewall level, what we can do here is that 10.0.3.0 will accept traffic on, let us say, XYZ port. So let us say DB is running on port number, let us say 3306, which is port number of MySQL, right? So port number 3306 will be whitelisted only for this particular IP address range, right? Now let us say these applications are running maybe on like port number 9765 or any port we can take. So this particular port of our application will be allowed to accept traffic from this particular range only.
Yeah, so this is what I was explaining, right? Which now it makes sense the way you put it, right? So basically, even before you come into my network, you're gonna have to go through the DMZ to hit my web server. However, you cannot have no access onto my prod or my database zone. That is how this the architecture should be, and this is kind of really better than the way you had it earlier. For me, I understand it is really much better.
Okay, so like I was just trying to explain 3 different zones. So obviously I'm supposed to deep dive into this. Going forward, we are not going to have like this sort of component. Definitely we are going to add like over a caching layer. We will add a particular auto scaling group here. We will see like how does auto scaling group is going to support us in order to ensure like high resilience, high availability, right? We are going to see like what type of rules we are going to implement here. We are not going to have only one application server. We will have different application server. Maybe let us say we talk about this particular component here. So how it is going to work for us. For example, we have like grocery. We will have different microservice for mobiles, for fashion, electronics, home, appliances, travel, and like beauty, toys, and more. So like these sort of components, we will be creating an architecture such as like the very first microservice which is going to be there. So traffic will definitely land onto these web servers only. So what we are going to do, like if it is for login service, right now we will not call it as application server. It is known as login servers. So if the request is coming for login servers, right? So the traffic will be forwarded from this load balancer to this microservice. And why is that so? Because if I want, there will be a different URL. If I click on login service, there will be different URL. and that URL will be filtered here. So if a particular request is coming for login URL, that will be forwarded here. Now let us say if a particular user is trying to purchase something, so like card. So if request is coming for card service, the request will be forwarded here. Now let us say that if a particular person is trying to make payment and the person is trying to do checkout. So if it is for checkout service, there will be different URL, and based on that URL, we will forward that microservice architecture or that particular request onto these servers, right? Because these servers are working in the same application layer, or you can call it in the same production layer. So database connection will by default be allowed for all servers, right?
That is if you're doing monolithic. If you're doing monolithic, then you can have all your services going into one database, but then you can have every service have your own database through microservices, right?
Yes. So even that sort of thing we are going to see within next couple of classes only. Because see, 80% things are going to appear from your network diagram only. If you understand your network diagram up to a good extent, then there is nothing wrong. Like obviously, like you can do Google and you can easily figure out a couple of commands which you need to execute. But end of the day, what you need to have a very clear picture of your infrastructure. If you have a very clear picture of your infrastructure, it means you are very good with troubleshooting. For example, let us say someone is going to complain, okay, my checkout is not working. You will easily have an idea, okay, there should be a particular service. There has to be a particular URL, which is right now not working. You will go through this particular load balancer. You will easily find out that which are the servers which are supposed to be up and running. You can debug that and you will log into these servers and you can check it out. But if you do not understand the architecture, then it is going to be a really difficult thing for you to like manage and to troubleshoot.
Okay, here how will decide like what are the traffic you need to send to log in a card services? So those rules, what rules will be putting on? How will be deciding?
Okay, wait. So see the URL here, the URL which is changing here at this particular location. The URL here is https www.flipkart.com/grocery supermarket store, right? If we go here, the URL is once again changing. Mobile phone store. If we talk about this particular, so obviously like there are some other URLs here. Every single different component has a different URL, right?
Yes.
So based on these URLs, we will be defining that the traffic should be going to which microservice. Right?
Okay, so based on your path, we have to set the rules, correct?
Yes, path based, like we will have to define your path based routing.
Okay, host also path. Okay, I understood now. Thank you.
Yeah. So for example, see, that is why I said today we are discussing a very high level architecture. Reason being, first of all, like this should be very clear, like what is 3-tier architecture and how does it look like. Going forward, what we are going to discuss, for example, there are 5 web servers. Obviously, like when we have different login services here, so definitely we are supposed to different web servers as well, right? Because all the traffic cannot be handled by 3 application servers or 3 web servers, right? So for example, this load balancer will be deciding, like we are going to have 2 type of like rules here. First of all, host based routing. Second thing, this will be path based routing. So for example, if my host is, let us say www.flipkart.com, that will be forwarded here. But if it is like mobile like if someone is coming from mobile device, maybe I would like to serve my user in a different way, such as if a user is coming from desktop, that will be forwarded here. If a user is coming from mobile, right? So I would like to identify that and I would like to redirect that user to a different server. Like if it is mobile.flipkart.com, that will be forwarded here. Now let us say if a user is coming for checkout, like checkout checkout.flipkart.com. That user will be forwarded here. So this is example of host based routing, right guys? Now, if the domain name remains same, domain name is www.flipkart.com. Now the URL is changing, not the domain name. It is the URL which is changing. So right now, if it is login, that will be forwarded here onto this particular web server. If it is, once again, let me copy this. So guys, if the URL here is flipkart.com/mobile or flipkart.com/checkout, so either we can forward our traffic based on different host names or based on different URLs which are changing at this particular point, right? So based on host based routing or based on like path based routing, we can define the targeted web servers, and this routing will be done at the level of your load balancer.
Yes. And the load balancer, why do you keep the load balancer?
Because we cannot put, let us say we have kept these web servers behind a auto scaling group. So number of web servers keep on changing based on requirement. For example, there is less load, only 5 servers are there, and if traffic increases, there are 50 servers right now. So it will be really hard for us to manage the number of IP addresses in your DNS records. Moreover, it will be difficult for you to like distribute traffic among these web servers. That is why load balancer is required to distribute load or distribute traffic among different web servers. Are we clear with this thing, guys?
Yes.
So tomorrow, guys, we are going to discuss in more detail. Like we are going to see like where do we implement your web app firewall? Where do we implement your firewall? How the CDN is going to help you? Maybe you would like to have like internal caching. Maybe you would like to internal CDN stuff, or maybe you would like to have any sort of third-party application. What is going to be that? What sort of feature does this provide? What have you worked with? What sort of component you should be knowing? How do we implement SSL like connection between your infrastructure and your third-party provider, that no one should be able to spoof your traffic? That sort of thing we are going to discuss tomorrow, right, guys? So I guess hope to see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
I would not explain anything further today, because in that particular case, if I start explaining that is going to be in really deep dive thing, and that will at least take 1.5 to or maybe like 2 hours that will take. So I would not start that today. So guys, any questions so far if you have, or any feedback for the session?
Look at this one question is, do you implement all this architecture from starting from the DNS to the DB, and this architecture will you complete it in this session, in this class?
I will not implement in practical way, but the particular conceptual knowledge, like whatever we are doing. So part by part, we are definitely going to do. Like I'll be explaining complete DNS settings. I'll be explaining about load balancers. I'll be explaining about your auto scalings, right? Your target groups, your VPC creation, VPC separate components I'm going to explain. But if you talk about like, am I going to show like a real website creation? So I would say no.
Oh, okay.
But yes, every single individual component, I will be explaining the same depth as we are going right now.
Okay. Actually, the main problem happens when we segregate everything together, and then we can know that how it's working, and is real time will have and that experience. Individual is okay because that's perfectly fine. That's good, but these things only will struggle if we combine together, because then only we see actual problem.
Samir, let me tell you one thing here. So main thing here is a person does not know the components in depth. That's why they are not able to include or like they are not going to put it all together. If you want, it will hardly take me 15 minutes to like build that sort of infrastructure. It will hardly take 15 minutes.
Oh, okay.
I can tell you that. That's not a main thing here. Main thing here is, if I build a WordPress website, right? So that will have a web server, that will have a WordPress application server, that will have MySQL. A WordPress website is good enough to understand this particular complete logic. But what I'm trying to talk about here is, rather than going for like that particular complete integration, we need to understand the entire architecture. And why do I say so? Because when we are talking about this type of flow, So guys, we need to understand. Okay, let us say that you are a web administrator only. You are not allowed to like look into your login servers. You are not allowed to work on database servers. So what does that mean? Will you not understand that if a database is not working properly, then what sort of issues are supposed to be like reflected on the front end side? If any of your application server is not working, then how will you identify? So I'm talking about much deeper side. But if you want, definitely like that will hardly take me half an hour to create that sort of infrastructure. I can do that. But yes, that is a guarantee. Once you go through this particular component, once you go through this particular session, you shall be able to build this sort of infrastructure yourself.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah. So, okay, guys, now the time is to ask for the feedback. Any feedback for the session, guys?
Yeah, Lokendra sir, it's a very good session for, especially for me, because I was not aware of all this terminology. Means overall, I was aware of the high level architecture, but whatever knowledge you have, means we got this morning, that will help us in future.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a good session. Even I also got to know a lot of things. Thank you.
Okay, great. So any other one would like to comment anything here? Because why do I ask for the feedback? Because if I get a genuine feedback, then definitely I try to improvise myself. I try to improve myself.
Yes, actually, it was very, very good session. As someone said in the initial, right? You are working on this, infra, but you are not sure exactly, in a deep dive. Actually, we knew the high level, architecture, how the actually application works and all. But now I can understand fully. I mean, how exactly the backend works. Okay, for this infra. And thank you so much for so whatever the information you was. In this session. Thank you so much.
Great. So someone is asking about the activity of day-to-day activity of DevOps engineer. I'll explain that in coming sessions. Don't worry for that, because that is not sort of a straightforward answer. That will need to have deep dive, because you need to understand like being what level of DevOps engineer you need to do what. Yes. So I'll definitely like answer the question, but not right now because that needs some time. Okay, guys. So I guess we are good to go. We are good to call it a day today, right? And guys, if you have any other question,
Can you share the fee details?
yes, definitely, guys. So I am going to share my number within chat box. So that 7838793800. This is my Google Pay or Phone Pay number. And okay, I have sent to individual person. Just a moment. I'm going to send it to everyone. So guys, fee is 9,000 rupees, right? 9,000 INR, right? If someone is going to pay from outside India, then I have my PayPal ID as well. You can do Google Pay, Phone Pay, or maybe Paytm on the same number. Everything is accepted. And if someone is trying to pay outside India, then lksingh009@gmail.com is my PayPal ID. Right, guys? So, well, thank you, everyone. Thank you so very much. Hope to see you in coming sessions as well. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so very much. Have a good time. Take care. God bless you all. Bye-bye.
What's the duration for this?
So, buddy, it is going to get completed within 1 to 1.5 months. 1 to 1.5 months that will take. Because see, like sometimes it depends on the audience as well. Like if there is a discussion which is going on, so obviously I do not want to cut that in between, because teaching is my passion. So, and behind passion, I do not care about the time.